My name is Ethan, and I've spent my whole life trying to earn my family's love. But no matter how much I gave, I was always the afterthought. Then one night I got a text. We have to postpone the trip. We just can't afford it right now. I believed them until I saw the photos. They hadn't postponed a thing. They had just gone without me. And this time I wasn't going to let it slide. That night, I stared at the message on my phone, my chest tightening. We have to postpone the trip. We just can't afford it right now. Postponed? After 6 months of planning? After I had rearranged my entire work schedule, skipped nights out with friends, and lived off ramen just to save up for this trip? My fingers tightened around the phone. I called my dad immediately. He picked up on the third ring, his voice heavy with something that almost sounded like guilt. Ethan, look, I know you're disappointed, he said with a sigh. But things are tight right now. We just can't swing it this year. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to stay calm. If it's about money, we can find a cheaper hotel. I don't mind covering my own flight. Ethan, he cut in, his tone final. It's just not the right time. We'll make it happen next year. I promise. Promise. One I should have known better than to believe. For a few minutes, I sat there in silence, gripping my phone, trying to convince myself that this was just bad luck, that they really couldn't afford it, that it wasn't about me. But then came the hesitation. The way my dad didn't even consider my offer to help. The way he spoke like the decision had already been made. Like my feelings didn't matter. I wanted to believe them. I really did. But deep down, something told me I shouldn't. 2 days later, during my lunch break, I absent-mindedly pulled out my phone, scrolling through Facebook. That's when I saw it. A photo. My mom and dad, standing on a sun-drenched beach, sunglasses perched on their heads, drinks in hand, smiling like they didn't have a care in the world. My stomach dropped. I scrolled down. Another photo. My younger brother, Tyler, laughing on a boat with his girlfriend, arms wrapped around her like they were on some picture-perfect getaway. Another, my parents at a high-end seafood restaurant, plates of lobster in front of them. Then came the caption that made my blood run cold. Family time is priceless. Family time, except I wasn't there. Because according to them, the trip had been postponed. I locked my phone and sat frozen, my mind racing. Maybe there was an explanation. Maybe this was a last-minute work trip. Maybe someone had gifted them this vacation. Maybe, but no. I knew the truth. They hadn't postponed anything. They had just decided that I wasn't part of it. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't going to pretend like that didn't matter. I locked my phone, my chest tightening with a rage I hadn't felt in years. I wanted to call them, demand an explanation, ask them why they thought I wouldn't notice, why they thought I wouldn't matter. But deep down, I already knew the answer. I had always been the afterthought, the one who didn't complain, the one who didn't need as much attention as Tyler, the one who was supposed to just understand. But this time, I wasn't going to let it slide. Before I continue the story, I want to connect with all of you, my incredible viewers. Where are you watching from? Drop your country's flag in the comments below. I love seeing how far this story reaches. Now, back to what happened next. For the next few days, I stayed silent. I didn't comment on their posts, didn't text, didn't let them know I had seen everything. Instead, I watched as more pictures flooded my feed. My parents at a luxury resort, Tyler and his girlfriend on jet skis, the whole family sitting around a bonfire, smiling like they didn't have a single regret in the world. They had no idea I was seeing all of it. No idea that with every new post, every new caption, my anger hardened into something else. Determination. They thought I'd just let it go. That I'd move on quietly, like I always did. But this time I had other plans. The day they were set to return, I made sure I was waiting. When the taxi pulled into the driveway, I stood in the living room, arms crossed, my heartbeat steady. Through the window, I watched as they stepped out, tanned and happy, dragging their suitcases behind them. They looked so relaxed, so unaware of the storm they were about to walk into. The front door swung open, and my mom was the first to spot me. "Ethan," she said, her voice bright and cheerful, as if she hadn't just spent a week lying to my face. "Oh, honey, I missed you. How have you been?" I didn't smile, didn't move. "Busy," I said flatly. My dad set his bags down with a grunt. "That's good. How's work?" I let out a short, bitter laugh. "Work? That's what he wanted to talk about?" Tyler strolled in behind them, stretching his arms. "Man, I'm exhausted," he yawned. "Traveling takes it out of you." Then he smirked at me. "Hope you held down the fort while we were gone." And that was it. Like it was nothing. Like I was nothing. I took a slow breath. No more pretending. "So," I said, my voice eerily calm, "how was the trip?" My mom hesitated just for a second, but I caught it. "Oh, well, she said, forcing a smile. "We just needed a little getaway. Nothing too special." Liar. I reached into my pocket, pulled out my phone, and with one swipe, I turned the screen toward them. The beach selfie, the boat ride, the 5-star dinner, and that caption that had burned itself into my mind. "Family time is priceless." I tilted my head. "Looks special to me." Silence. Thick, heavy silence. Then my mom let out a nervous laugh. "Ethan, I don't just don't." I cut her off, my voice sharp. My dad cleared his throat. "Son, it wasn't—" "Stop," I snapped. "Just tell me the truth." I watched as guilt flickered across my mom's face. For a split second, I thought she might actually admit it. But instead, she sighed. "It wasn't like that, honey. We just thought—" "What?" I demanded. "That I wouldn't notice? That I'd be stupid enough to believe your lie?" Tyler groaned, rolling his eyes. "Oh my God, Ethan, are you seriously making this a big deal? It was just a trip. Just a trip." The words hit me like a slap. The trip I had planned. The trip I had saved for. The trip I was supposed to be a part of. I shook my head, laughing bitterly. "You could have told me the truth. But instead, you lied. You made me feel like I wasn't worth bringing." Tyler scoffed. "You're being dramatic." "No, Tyler," I said, my voice steady, my jaw clenched. "For once in my life, I'm finally being honest." My mom stepped forward, reaching for my hand. "Ethan, please, I pulled away. "No, not this time." They needed to hear this. "This isn't just about the trip," I said, my voice shaking with something raw. "This is about every single time I've been treated like I don't matter. Every holiday where Tyler got exactly what he wanted and I got whatever was convenient. Every time I put this family first and you didn't even notice." My dad swallowed hard. "Ethan, it's not like we love Tyler more than you." I let out a small, humorless smile. "Maybe you don't," I said. "But it sure feels that way." Silence. And that was my answer. I exhaled sharply, nodding. "Got it." Then, without another word, I grabbed my keys and walked toward the door. "Ethan, wait," my dad called. I didn't look back. "Where are you going?" I opened the door, stepping outside. Somewhere I'm actually wanted. And then, for the first time in my life, I put myself first. For the first time in my life, I didn't reach out first. I didn't text them. I didn't call. I didn't try to fix things. Instead, I let the silence settle. At first, their messages came in waves. My mom was the first to text, telling me I was making this a bigger deal than it needed to be. My dad followed, saying that ignoring them wouldn't change anything. Then Tyler, of course, chimed in, calling me dramatic and telling me to get over it. I rolled my eyes. They weren't sorry. They were just uncomfortable. So I did nothing. And that's when the tone of their messages started to change. A few days later, my mom reached out again, softer this time. She told me they missed me, that they never meant to hurt me. My dad sent a message not long after, saying they should have handled things differently, that they wanted to talk. And then finally, my mom sent the one message that nearly broke me. She told me she couldn't sleep, knowing I was upset with them. For a moment, I almost responded. Almost gave in. But then I asked myself a question. If I had never seen those photos, would they have ever told me the truth? The answer hit me like a punch to the gut. No, they wouldn't have told me. They wouldn't have even thought about telling me. So I put my phone down. And I let the silence stretch on. It wasn't easy. Years of conditioning told me to be the one to fix things. To smooth things over, to let it go. But as the days passed, I realized something I had never let myself admit before. They weren't reaching out because they missed me. They were reaching out because they missed the role I played in their lives. The fixer. The peacemaker. The one who always let things go. And now that I wasn't doing that, they didn't know what to do. A week passed. Then another. I had expected the guilt to crush me, to make me second-guess myself. But it never came. Instead, I felt something else. Relief. For the first time in my life, I wasn't bending over backward to earn a place in my own family. And that's when I did something I had never done before. I booked a trip. Not a huge one, just a quiet weekend in the mountains. A cabin, a lake, a place where no one could reach me. I didn't tell them where I was going. I didn't ask for permission. I just packed my bag, grabbed my keys, and left. Because for once, I wasn't waiting to be included. I was choosing myself. And it felt amazing. By the time I got back, my phone was full of missed calls and messages. But I didn't rush to answer them. I wasn't ready yet. Because for the first time, I was finally putting myself first. But they weren't used to me ignoring them. So when my silence lasted longer than they expected, they showed up at my door. I heard the knock one afternoon as I was sipping coffee on my couch. I already knew who it was before I even got up. I took a deep breath, set my mug down, and walked to the door. I wasn't nervous. I wasn't shaking. I was ready. When I opened the door, my parents stood on my porch. They looked different. Not angry. Not defensive. Just unsure. "Ethan," my mom said softly, shifting her purse in her arms. "Can we come in?" I leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. "Depends," I said evenly. "Are you here to actually listen, or just to tell me why I'm wrong for being upset?" My dad exhaled, rubbing the back of his neck. "We're here to talk. Really talk." I studied them for a moment. They weren't ordering me to let them in. They weren't trying to guilt-trip me into forgiveness. They were asking. That was new. I stepped aside. "Fine," I said. "Come in." The air inside felt heavier than usual, thick with things unsaid. My mom sat on the couch, her hands folded in her lap. My dad stayed standing, shifting his weight like he wasn't sure if he should sit. I didn't say anything. I just waited. Finally, my mom sighed. "I don't know where to start." "The truth is a good place," I said flatly. She flinched, but she nodded. My dad let out a slow breath. "We messed up," he admitted. I blinked. I hadn't expected that. My mom looked down at her hands, her voice quiet when she finally spoke. "When we said the trip was postponed, it was a lie. No excuses. No sugarcoating. Just the truth." I swallowed hard. "Why?" She hesitated. Then finally she said it. "We thought it would be easier." Easier. Just like she had texted me. I clenched my jaw. "Easier for who?" Silence. "For you." I pressed. "For Tyler." My dad sighed. "We didn't think it would hurt you this much." I let out a sharp, bitter laugh. "You didn't think at all." My mom's voice cracked. "We thought you'd understand." Understand. The same word they had used in their messages. The word that meant nothing. I leaned forward. "Tell me the truth," I said. "If I hadn't seen those pictures, would you have ever told me?" Neither of them spoke. That was my answer. I swallowed the lump in my throat and forced my voice to stay even. "Do you have any idea what that felt like?" I asked. "To see you all having fun without me? To know that I was never even considered?" My mom's eyes shimmered with guilt. "Ethan, we love you." I shook my head. "You don't treat people you love like that." My dad sighed, running a hand through his hair. "We failed you, son. We should have been honest." I stared at him, then at my mom. "Why are you really here?" I asked. "To apologize? Or to make yourselves feel better?" They hesitated. Then my mom whispered, "Both." At least that was honest. We sat in silence for a long time. Finally, my mom spoke again. "I don't know how to fix this," she admitted. I exhaled slowly, feeling the weight of all the years of being second place. And I realized something. I didn't need them to fix it. I just needed them to understand that it would never be the same. "I don't know either," I admitted. "But I do know this. I'm not going to be the one to fix it for you." My dad nodded. Slow. Understanding. My mom wiped at her eyes. "What do we do now?" she whispered. I met her gaze. "That's up to you." They thought an apology would be enough. But apologies don't erase years of being treated like an afterthought. This time, they had to prove they were willing to change. Apologies were easy. Change? That was the hard part. Days passed. Then weeks. First, nothing happened. I told myself it was proof. If I wasn't the one putting in the effort, there was no effort at all. But then, on a random Tuesday, my phone lit up. "Hey, sweetheart. Just thinking about you. Hope you're doing okay." A day later, another message. Miss you, kid. Let's grab dinner sometime. I hesitated. Not because I was ready to let them back in, but because, for the first time, they were trying. I agreed to dinner, not for closure, not for forgiveness, but because I needed to see if they meant it. At dinner, it was different. They didn't talk about Tyler. They didn't act like nothing happened. They asked about me. And for once, they listened. Halfway through, my mom cleared her throat. We always thought you didn't need us as much. That because you were strong, we didn't have to try as hard. She swallowed. Now we know that was wrong. For years, I had wanted to hear those words. But words were easy. Change was harder. A few weeks later, my birthday came. Normally, it was an afterthought. But that morning, there was a knock on my door. When I opened it, my parents were standing there holding a cake. They had never done this before. "Happy birthday," my dad said. And for once, I believed them. It wasn't perfect. There were still missteps, old habits creeping in. But this time, they noticed. They corrected themselves. And they kept showing up. Months later, as I packed for a solo trip I had saved for, my dad asked, "When's your flight?" I blinked. "You remember?" He smirked. "Of course. It's Italy, right?" For the first time, they weren't offering help because they wanted something. They just wanted to be part of my life. And that was enough. As I boarded the plane, I realized something. I had spent years waiting. Waiting to be seen. Waiting to be chosen. But I wasn't waiting anymore. I was choosing myself. And for the first time, that was more than enough. This story isn't just about a canceled trip. It's about something deeper, something many of us have felt but rarely say out loud. It's about being the afterthought, the one who's always expected to understand, to adjust, to accept less. It's about realizing that no matter how much you give, some people will never appreciate you until you stop giving. But most importantly, it's about choosing yourself. About knowing your worth and refusing to beg for the love and respect that should have been freely given. It's about setting boundaries, not out of anger, but out of self-respect. Now, I want to hear from you. What do you think about this story? Drop a 2 in the comments if you liked it, or a 7 if you didn't. And if you've ever felt like the forgotten one, let's talk about it. Your story matters too. Before you go, if this story resonated with you, hit that like button and don't forget to subscribe to Mr. HeartVibes for more powerful stories like this. Your support means the world, and I can't wait to share more with you. See you in the next one.